What's up, folks? We back. We are back. The Loquacious thing is officially back. Tonight's episode of the show I'm actually excited about, man. I can't wait to get my guest on tonight. I think it's gonna be a powerful show, man. I caught a couple of her lives on Instagram and she talked about some real things. My guest is Cat Out of the Bag. I'm gonna call her K for tonight. I'm gonna go ahead and let me explain what we're doing this platform real quick, man. This platform, I've been telling you guys, thanks for being patient. I've been telling you guys that I wanted to make it a space where, you know, it impacts mental health differently. And I kind of wanted to get to a space where I wanted to use life as an awareness, you know, to show that mental illness isn't something that people that are diagnosed deal with. It's something that we all deal with at some point. And we're gonna hop right to it. Join us every Sunday at 8:30 p.m. and 9:30 p.m. on Thursdays Eastern time. And we got a lot more shows coming your way, a lot more things coming your way as far as put back on the stigma of mental health. I'm gonna go ahead and get into the show tonight. Hopefully it won't go too long. We don't have it planned going over an hour, but this is my most put together show yet that I've had. So I kind of leveled up my screen game on this one. So let's get into it, man. And hopefully this isn't a copyright violation. I learned that one of the things I wanted to do earlier was a copyright violation. Hopefully the artists on these spoken word poetry videos will reach out and, you know, hop on the show one day. You know, spread that love and that awareness as well. So let's get right to it. Here we go.
And round we go. Down we fall.
It's over, depression. Do you know why you're here? This ain't a game.
I've been framed.
No. We got the right man. You are being charged with the first-degree murder of millions of people, an infinite amount of agony, along with the pain and suffering of their families. You're the worst killer of all time. Just look at your crimes. You've taken more lives than Hitler and Stalin combined. What you have done is awful. You've been on a run, but you got sloppy, cocky, and now we finally caught you, Mr. Depression. Do you recognize this man? Look at him, damn it. This is Robin Williams. He was very well known. At approximately 11:45 a.m., August 11, 2014, he was found dead in his home. Cause of death was suicide, but that ain't true. It was not suicide, was it? It was you.
Got nothing on me.
Oh, we have a witness, and according to our medical examiner, Mr. Williams had antidepressants in his system. Laughter and joy was the reason for his existence, but you were his affliction. Now let's move on to your other victims. Mr. Anthony Bourdain. His life was about spreading good news and good food, but you made him insane. Marilyn Monroe, Mac Miller, Kurt Cobain. You sure do get around, huh? I mean, so many names.
Please, I'm not responsible for all of these.
Well, our forensics team matched your fingerprints at every scene. It says here you have a track record of robbery, but you don't rob people of their things. You take all they've got to give. You don't just kill people, you steal their will to live. We're gonna lock you up for all the evil things you did. You're not a mere identity thief. Yeah, you take identity, but you also take energy, memory. Literally everything mentally instantly flips into crippling misery, viciously killing abilities, tricking your victims into defending your sickening, twisted criminal tendencies. Let me take it slow. You're a pathological liar, sir, a troll. 300 million face you each year. But you're so bold, you manage to convince each one that they're all alone. That's cold. You're gonna pay for your crimes. When people ask your victims, how are they? You brainwash them and say, I'm fine. Is it so you can continue to hide behind lies disguised and secretly assault and batter their mind? You love when people say, think positive, snap out of it, get over it, or cheer up. It's all in your head. But all of that is stupid. Like telling a dancer to cheer up by going dancing after they broke both of their legs. People can't just get over you. You're not just in their head. You're inside their whole body, making them feel dead. Some people confuse you with sad, but that ain't true. You and sad are like the difference between the sniffles and the flu, and that's facts. From anyone who's been around you, we get mad at alcoholics, but they're just trying to drown you. Your type of hate don't discriminate. Don't matter your height, weight, gay, straight, black, white, no one escapes. You attack sons, daughters, husbands, partners, doctors, lawyers. Doesn't matter where you live, and according to these charts, my God, you are now the leading cause of death in kids. You're a virus, a cancer. No, you're worse than cancer. You wear a shirt for cancer that says, I survived. But him seems like he never goes. He's always there lurking like a serpent, working to murder the soul. You don't remember me, do you? I mean, how could you? I was just a kid then, but you were so brutal. You tortured me for years. I believed your sick lies. Like eating acid, you destroyed me from the inside. I can't explain the pain of what it's like sleeping for 12 hours, waking up and still being drained. No, waking up wanting to die or go back to sleep, cause that's the only place where there seems to be peace. I didn't want to shower, didn't want to get dressed. It took too much energy to reply to a text. You drained my battery, kept me on 1% dying. And then you hit the charger in a place I couldn't find it. You made me feel worthless, like I had nothing to offer. And then I thought maybe I'd be better off in a coffin. But deep down, I didn't want to end my life. I just didn't want to live my life. And then one night, I refused to take it any longer. So I studied you and discovered the chink in your armor. See, the things you kept me away from and repressed were the very things that would free me from your grip of death. You look nervous. Here, have a cigarette. Yeah, you love alcohol and cigs. You would never do a cleanse. You love the couch. You hate gyms. You hate going to nature. You hate hanging out with friends. Cause these are the things that help bring you to an end. The truth is, I do want revenge. But even with all of this evidence, we'll never lock you in a cage. We stop you in the real world when we say your name. We stop you when your victims are no longer shamed. We stop you when your victims are no longer blamed. And we raise the emotional IQ of the world and teach people of the many ways they can fight you. We don't have to despise you. Once we understand who you are, we can redefine you. That's when a light will shine through, and our greatest pain will become our greatest strength because we survived you. That's when a light will shine through, and our greatest pain becomes our greatest strength because we survived you. You.
All right, man, that was a deep one, man. That was deep, but it pretty much summed up how a lot of people feel with depression. I know it summed up a lot of how I felt, man. So diving right into it, man, we're gonna go. This month's series is called "Man, Depression Messed Me Up." Tonight's episode is called "The Weight of Depression." We're gonna dive into a little bit with our guest. Real quick, man, just want to bring attention to so many people who are suffering today. You know what I'm saying? It's at an all-time, suicide is at an all-time high. Not just suicide, but people are crashing out all over, man, from, using drugs, turning to addiction, alcoholism, and things like that, violence, simple things. Suicide is in there as well, one of the high things. The scary part of it is that the numbers are increasing, amongst men and children. They're on the rise, and women are holding it down themselves pretty good, so. And that's worldwide now, man. It's not just national. It's a worldwide epidemic from Africa to Europe to all over the other countries, man. So hopefully this show does its job, man, and brings some awareness in a different way to where it's not so heavy at times, but it will get heavy. But we want to try our best to balance it out. So with this, I'm going to lead into, after this next spoken word poem, we have our guest, Kay, coming up. And can't wait to introduce you guys to her. Give me 1 second. Last one, I promise y'all. I ain't gonna beat y'all up with poems all night. We're gonna get into it after this one, I promise.
Creator because I create things. I'm an artist, which also means I'm a creator because I create things. A storyteller since I have stories to tell, a visionary. I write about where I've been. These poems act as self-help. I'm a healer. Not always for myself, but one time a kid told me he almost killed himself, but he heard one of my poems and decided to keep living. And from that day forward, I was like, today is a good day to keep someone alive. People ask me how I did it or how they should do it. And I'm sure if they're asking me about the kid or themselves, what I've come to learn is no one can tell when I'm not doing well but me. I get to travel across the country and do poems for a living, like that's my job. And out of 50 states, I've performed in 47 of them. I read an article that said only 20% of people in the US are doing what they actually love, or whatever sad statistic it was. And I was like, my God, ain't damned nothing in me. I'm doing exactly what I've always wanted to do. So I must be blessed. Must be exemplifying all this miracle. I am stressed and winning. I look at and update my curriculum vitae daily, and I'd be like, damn, I'm surprised I even knew how to say that word. And ain't nobody wish nothing bad on me but me. Like everything I've ever wanted, I manifested at the end of each meditation. I asked the universe to make me undeniably enough. And people be mad happy when I show up. One time, I performed for 200,000 people and I didn't throw up. It was so cool and exhausting. Did you know I could touch what feels like 1 million people's energy and help them feel seen and go back to my hotel room feeling so fulfilled yet lonely? Yeah, it's amazing. Another time, I thought I was gonna marry this guy I had been with for like 6 years out of my life, but he said he hated my lifestyle, even though this is my life's work, because my work means I'm never home. But every time I came back, he was gone, as in emotionally unavailable, mentally abusive. I have extreme PTSD from that unhealthy relationship, but someone asked me to do that one poem about that one time where he was mine. May you find a lover that helps you love yourself. May you find a lover that doesn't require you to give more to them than you have to give to yourself. Did I mention I paid off my student loans with poetry? Can't nobody tell me I'm not the shit but me. I get so sad sometimes, I think I'm losing my mind, and I must be since I enrolled in graduate school this past May. I guess I returned to my oppressor. I am whoever the fuck I think I am, but I wish being a good person paid more. I heard it's the wounds people can't see that hurt the most, but I've seen sunsets that look like somewhere tomorrow. My heart is on fire, so I'm chasing the day. At night, I don't sleep, I grind. I've been in my prime like 9 times. I got so much love I give and keep giving. I have so much advice that are really opinions, or maybe they're just hard facts I haven't hardly learned yet. Did I mention that people comment on how I'm doing by mentioning my weight? And here I am, some foolish somebody that didn't actually hate the way they look today. But you right, girl, must be the depression. But I'm the kind of giant that's been through what I've been through and you can still depend on. I gave all that I had, and you ain't never known a Black woman who ain't did that. My friends call on me when they're down and out or just in need. And what good is a God that can't speak life into somebody? Check on your strong friends. Check on your strong friends. Check on your strong friends. Don't believe us. I promise we're pretending. Have you ever tried to tell someone you're not okay and they're like, you're good, and you're like, but I'm not, and they're like, you got this, and you're like, but I don't, and they're like, keep going, and you're like, okay, thank you. You're right. I could do this with my eyes closed. I'm so overwhelmed that one time I was drowning and screaming, but everybody thought I was swimming and smiling. I died in that dream, and then I woke up on an airplane flying to a different country to do poetry. I'm so blessed. I'm so blessed. I'm so blessed that my heart is racing. My mind is crazy. I'm probably dehydrating. Traveling does awful things to the body, but the one thing I can tell you about being successful is that you have to love what you're doing. Can't nobody steal my joy. Can't nobody steal my joy, not even myself. I heard that or someone said that if your path is more difficult, it's because your calling is higher. And so I say I be hero and legend. Nobody built like me, I designed myself. But every time I climb, my community get co-signed, divinity defined. Cheers to the Most High. I just pray I leave something good behind. My name is Ebony Stewart. Thank you so much.
Man, that one was deep, bro. All right. Got myself in a little slump. Let me go get up out of it real quick. Now, that was some real stuff, man. Just another reflection showing that it's a lot of people dealing with this stuff, man. It'll look different for everybody. So with that, man, we're about to go ahead. We're about to introduce our guest, Kay. Kay in the bag. Check out her live streams on her Instagram. You know, not sure exactly what she's doing anymore, like in the evening, but we're going to let her tell us in a second. Welcome, Kat. Everyone's, let me figure this thing out. What's up, Kat?
Hey.
Hey. How you feeling, Kay?
Good. I feel good. Those were some good spoken words.
They were deep, right?
Very relevant. Very much so.
Right on point, man. Man, look, again, I want to thank you for coming on the show and blessing us with your words, man. Giving a little bit of insight, you know, on how things are handled on your end. I was laughing because I was, what's up, 2023? I graduated in 2000. You did too, right?
01.
01. 22 years for me, for you, 23 for me, man. That's scary. But it's good talking to you. It's been good back in contact, trying to plan this thing out. It's been hit and miss. You know, I got a little bit of insight into, you know, a little bit of your battle, man. I just want to tell you that you're a very strong woman, man. Like, whew, the stuff you got through, the stuff you get through, like, you are one strong Black woman. I know y'all hate to hear that, but it's you have some immaculate strength. So I'm gonna go ahead and carry us into the conversation. You got anything you want to say before we get started?
Yeah, you know, I want to thank you for having me on. You know, it's so crazy because when I first started thinking, like, one of my goals was like, okay, I'm going to start, you know, in some way, I'm going to start some type of broadcast, whether it be podcasting or live streams, whatever it may be. And I started, and I saw yours, and I was like, you know, I'm going to ask them, can I go in there? You, like, the next day had said something, and I was like, it's supposed to happen. It's supposed to. So I want to thank you first. I want to thank you first for, you know, one, making sure that the idea stayed alive. And, you know, for two, just you being so transparent and being an inspiration to be transparent.
No doubt, man. I appreciate all that, Kat. You know, anytime you want to hop on and talk, you know, you got it, man. I mean that. All right. Let's dig into this a little bit. All right, Kate. Yeah. So kind of want to keep the conversation style, just talking a little bit, you know, about some of the things that, you know, who you are, you know, what you deal with, how things look through your lens, and just put out there whatever you want to put out there. You know what I mean? So I guess the first thing, why don't you tell everybody, like, who you are, what you do, like a little bit of your background, your hobbies.
You know, my name is Kay. I started a live stream on Instagram called Cat Out the Bag. And it was basically just brought up because I was definitely going through something. You know, in this day and age, we go through something all the time. Every day is something. Some days that something's a good thing. Some days that something is not a good thing. So I was going through a lot of days of that something not being a good thing. And just being in isolation, and I want to talk, but wanting to talk. So I kind of like found a tribe, a community in Instagram Live. I started jumping on other people's. I said I was going to do more of my own, but I've just more so been jumping on other people's because platforms are great. You get your motivation, you get people that that can communicate
Yeah.
and express how you feel through their own words, where you could piggyback off of, and vice versa. So I just made a forum, and it was like the first night I did it, it was so crazy because so many people jumped on. I just was not expecting for it to.
Yeah, you was on for hours that night too.
Yeah, it went much better than I expected it to go. I met a lot of good people at that point in time, and just started to follow more people, and then my inbox started jumping off, and it was like, whoa, like. So, it's just, when you deal with things, and a lot of people, they get nervous to speak on it, or they get nervous to say something about it, and they see somebody trying to say it. It gives them some type of inspiration to be like, okay, like I can. So.
Facts. Hey, I said that only to put pressure on you so you can get back on there, right? Like,
I know. I know.
No, but I'm just messing with you. So, you talk a little bit about the depression you dealt with a couple months ago. To make you do that, you kind of give you an outlet, another way to cope with the way you were feeling back then. Do you mind sharing what your battle, mentally kind of looks like?
Yeah, so I've suffered with depression. I first got diagnosed maybe about 11 or 12 years ago. Unfortunately, we are in a culture, being the African American culture, we're in a culture where even back to, the motherland, if you were not conformed, and you didn't look like everyone else, meaning the way that you dealt with things, then you were crazy, or you were an outcast, things like that. So this generation now has the advantage of mental health being a priority, being a thing, being something that's acknowledged and recognized, and not just looked at as something that's crazy because, I see you smiling. How can you say you're sad? So, it's something that's acknowledged for, although it's subjective, it's outwardly acknowledged. So I was diagnosed maybe 11, 12 years ago. Depression is very common in females, especially females who have birthed children. When you deal with depression or any type of mental health issue, you have to remember that your body is one organism. So looking at it as from an integrative perspective or a holistic perspective, if you cut your finger, you might cut the tip of your finger, but now your whole finger hurts if it gets infected. That's kind of the way that it is. It starts off with a thought or a sadness or a few bad days, and then it goes into your whole body. Whether it looks like what's said in the poems, like you can't get up. You're overly tired. You're fatigued. You poor appetite. All those things start from somewhere, or even on the flip side of things, those things can be a continuation of your depression. If you're tired and you're fatigued and you haven't gotten enough proper rest, or you're not eating well, all of those things can make your body feel bad, which will make your heart feel bad, make your mind feel bad. You start thinking bad things. So, once I was diagnosed, it just was like, okay, now what do I do? And I was diagnosed as a young adult. I was a young mother, and there was so many things that came with that. It was being fatigued. It was being afraid. It was being unheard. It was years of trauma that were locked away, that once I started going to therapy, and I've been going to therapy, again, 11, 12 years, like I am not ashamed to admit it. Right. When I used to get asked, why do you go to therapy? Like, why don't you? When you're sick, you go to the doctors, right? Like, why don't you? But things like that. And then people like, you still see a therapist? Yeah. You still get the flu shot. You keep maintenance on yourself. You still get your nails done. You keep maintenance on yourself. I keep maintenance on my mental health.
Exactly.
And it's not something that turns around the very next day. So there's no time limit on saying, I see a therapist for 10, 12 years. And so now I'm healed, or I'm good. No, because tomorrow something else could happen. And in those 10, 12 years, there have been a multitude of events that have occurred that have contributed to my depression. So, it's just been an ongoing battle, and there are good days, there are bad days, like I said, and on those bad days, I made myself have a way to deal with the bad days with another individual. So
So I mean, so you said you were diagnosed about 10 to 12 years, between that 10 to 12 years ago, somewhere around
Yes.
that time. How long did you live with? How long did you carry that weight around before you actually went to go get figure things out?
So I actually went to school and studied psychology. That was my major. Initially it was nursing, and then I switched it to psychology. So it was never something that I was ashamed of. Like I said, again, we're in a culture where it is not something that we advocate or prior to. It was not something our parents advocated for us. No, you don't have ADHD, you're just bad. Or,
Yeah.
no, you don't have depression, you're just bored. Or, it wasn't something that was advocated. So I had to learn to advocate for myself. I think when I realized that it was like, okay, this is starting to consume me. This is starting to take over my my daily activities. This is starting to interfere with me. At that point in time, depression had me. I didn't just have depression. So I realized pretty early on, like, this is not something I could do by myself. Luckily, like I said, I was studying at the time. I had some resources available that pointed me in the right direction. Excuse me. And then from there, I just started advocating for myself, advocating for my friends, advocating for my children. One thing that I always say is that when you have certain things that people can't see outwardly all the time, they don't believe you. So I have 3 sons, and boys automatically get removed from certain humanistic traits. They're not allowed to cry. You have to be tough all the time.
Right.
And that's not true. That's not true. And so they start off with that notion of, I can't cry. I got to be tough. I got to suck it up. That's the gateway to mental health issues. That's the gateway to depression. That's the gateway to, having an inability to be emotionally aware of yourself. That's the gateway. And with girls, just like you just told me, I'm a strong Black woman. Mm-hmm. I'm a smart Black woman. I'm a smart woman. I'm not as strong as I look some days, and some days I am, but some days I'm not. So you just have to make sure that you advocate in those spaces, and you have to be honest with yourself when it comes to things with like addiction or stuff like that. They tell you when you go to a NA or AA meeting that they tell you the first step is to acknowledge.
Yeah, facts.
And that's the same thing with your mental health. The first step is to acknowledge. In the spoken word that you showed, that it was so real, because the I'm okay text message. Oh my goodness. As all last year was it was a really traumatic and bad year for me. And I'm okay with calling it a bad year. And if I could have $1 for every I'm okay text message when I was not okay, I probably wouldn't have to work this year.
I feel you on that one, man. That's funny, because you're right. You bring up a good point. Like, when you think back to like you in high school and like seeing you on social media and things like that, up and down the timeline, you don't look like sad. You know what I'm saying? Like, you look like you're always in a good space. You got kids that are in sports, and you support that. You know what I'm saying? Like, the average person wouldn't think that you deal with what you deal with and how you deal with it. You know what I mean? Like, or how you have dealt with it, because obviously you have overcame a lot of that stuff. You know what I mean? But I know sometimes, like, although it can still get heavy. You know what I'm saying? It's not debilitating, but it can still get heavy, and you still got to go through, your routine and make sure that you have it at the front of your head. You know what I'm saying? It's funny that you mentioned accepting it, right? That was my biggest thing. When I got diagnosed with bipolar disorder, I was probably 20 days into PHP before I even started thinking, like, you know what, maybe I am bipolar. And then that's when you start thinking about the bipolar stuff you did before the diagnosis, and you just kind of go with it. It's a process to get used to it, though, man. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, whatever your process is, though, just go through it and just see it through, because that is like, it sounds cliche, but that light is different. On the other side of that darkness, man. And it seems like, and to be honest, it seems so much brighter when you come out of it. You know what I'm saying? Like, so it's just, I appreciate that level of transparency from you. I'm gonna ask you this, though, if you don't mind. Do you remember when life started to feel different? Can you speak on the triggers at that time?
Oh, absolutely. So despite my my actual clinical diagnosis was done, like I said, 11, 12 years ago. But
Mm.
I'm sure, almost positive, that, my depression dates back well before then. Like I said, I'm a victim of trauma and things like that. So my depression dates back much further than my diagnosis. When you're a child, you can't advocate for yourself. You can't go get your own help. So I would say maybe from like middle school, even to present. From middle school, I think it dates almost there when I started to feel different. And different meant I was always, I don't want to say popular, but I was always one of the kids that
you were.
I was always one of the kids that, was in the good crowds. And so despite I was constantly surrounded by human beings, I always felt alone. There was a lot of times where I was literally in contact with someone else or multiple people, and I felt alone. It just did not feel like, and in the meaning of not alone in presence, just alone in understanding, and someone understanding me, what I'm going through, what I'm feeling. Like I said, I can remember that as far back as middle school, just trying to figure out, like, where do I go with this? Like, who do I talk to about this? How do I express this? What do I say? Because I'm scared if I say certain things, then someone's going to attack me for it. Someone's going to put me down for it. So, despite outwardly, there was a sense of like high self-esteem. It was very low. And with that low self-esteem came a lot of introverting, despite it looking like I was extroverting.
That's crazy though, because you were like you and Chuck, man, y'all personalities are crazy. You know what I'm saying? Like, so that's mind blowing. That's mind blowing to me, just seeing it from a distance and like kind of being in that space of seeing you guys and how you move, throughout that time. But as I was talking to my co-host, when we first started talking about this thing, it's funny how, and even talking back to other people, it's funny how many people was dealing with things back then, and we made it look so smooth. You know what I'm saying? Like, you would have never known. Man. So
because we didn't, the triggers at the time were things like, so, we grew up in the county. Prior to, I lived in the city. In the city, it was common to be in a single parent home. We moved to the county. I was in a single parent home. So that meant that I was alone a lot. My brother and myself, we were alone a lot. Our mother had to go to work. There was not a father in the home. We were alone a lot. So that meant that some things were missed. Attachment styles were altered because, your attachment style looks like what it looks like based on what your childhood looks like. So my attachment style was altered a little bit because a lot of things I had to fend for on my own. I had to fend for myself. So when you are that, again, when you're young like that, or even when you're older, it in society, some things are acceptable, some things are not. In certain areas geographically, some things are acceptable, some things are looked down on. So when we moved into the county and just there was a lot of 2-parent homes, or it seemed like it. And I'm not saying just because the dad lived in the house that it was happy. It just looked like it. But we learned that, that as a society, we learned that, the saying, keep my business in the house, keep the house business in the house. We learned that. So it had to look acceptable outside the house, and inside the house, it looked like what it really was. The layers got peeled back inside the house, but outside the house, it had to look like it was shiny and
it was polished.
because it's nothing worse than being alone and being rejected or outcasted.
That's real. Okay. That's definitely real. So you carry that for all these years, right? And then you get to a space that you're in now, as someone that's successfully coping now with all of that, right? How does those triggers play out for you as an adult now,
So again, like I said, last year was bad. It was a really bad year for me. And it was because I had started to go through certain therapy. So there's certain therapies for certain things. So I had started to go through trauma therapy because that was just a space that was suppressed. And there were triggers that triggered that. I had significant deaths that they kind of helped me feel protected with those spaces. So when I lost those people, then it was, again, I was back to feeling alone. It was vulnerable. It was scared. It was, and those repressed feelings started to make their way out to the light when things started to look scary. So for me as a female, or just me in general, my biggest things is that protection. I require protection in my relationships, in my friendships. I require protection. That's one of my biggest things, and it doesn't mean physically, because I could throw hands, but
I know.
It just means, like, if I'm having a bad day, don't attack me while I'm having a bad day. Like, don't let me attack you either. But, like, don't attack me there either. Things like that, just small things like that. So I had gotten engaged and was dealing with a relationship with someone that, has a very positive attitude. And I started to see myself having bad attitudes when this person was trying to help me have a better attitude.
Yeah.
Again, I keep going back to the poems and the words because they literally were my life last year, literally. And it was like, when you have a positive person with someone who's going through something, that is the first thing you think to do. And I'm transparent. So if you say, Kay, how you feeling? I'm today's not a good day. I'm depressed. I'm not okay. Yes, you are.
Yeah.
You got this. And so my response to it was, okay, you're not ready to receive that. Like, I had to understand that that's not coming from a place of you overlooking me. It's coming from a place of you wanting me to feel better. But in my own understanding, my own emotional awareness, I'm not okay. And if you're not ready to accept that, then you know what I'm saying? I step aside real quick. But how do you tell that to someone that's integrated in your whole life? Someone that's integrated in your whole day, like your spouse or your significant other or your children. So I found myself a lot of the time by myself, literally, like isolated, removing myself from, not removing myself from the relationship, removing myself from the activities of the relationship. You know what? Today I don't feel like being hugged on. And I have a very affectionate, significant other. I don't feel like being hugged on today. So now I'm making him feel bad. And when I realized that my space was creating an unwanted space for him, then it was like, okay, I got to take the reins somewhere. Triggers would be things as easy as dates, specific dates. My grandmother passed when I was 15. That was the first time I ever got intoxicated. I wasn't supposed to. I don't condone it. I am not promoting it. But it was my maternal grandmother. And she, again, I was in a single family home. So a lot of my upbringing prior to then came from my grandmother. So my grandmother was a huge significant person in my upbringing. When she passed, there were things that surrounded it that made me feel bad or made me feel away. And so I took it hard at 15. I snuck into the refrigerator, got drunk off of peach schnapps and will never touch it again. Got drunk, and it was close to the holidays. My grandmother passed close to the holidays. And because of that, that was significant. So the smell of peaches is a trigger for me. Today is her birthday. A couple of years ago, today would have been a trigger for me. I was her only granddaughter, so we were extremely close. So today would have been a trigger for me. Dates were triggers for me. When I lost my father, certain dates, triggers. When I lost my son's father, certain dates, milestones. When our son graduated, when our son turned 18, we lost my son's father when my son was 16. And we basically grew up together. We raised each other while we were raising our son. And we had a very close and tight-knit, family situation. That was the person that I depended on for everything, all my interpersonal things, the things that I didn't share with everyone. And so losing that person, and then certain situations coming up where I can normally turn to that person, and it's like, what do I do? So, there were a lot of triggers over last year. And like I said, dealing with certain therapies and certain things people would say, like, oh, you had therapy today on your birthday, whatever it is, you're not over it today. And that, and in that instant, in that disregard or unintentional disregard, boom, trigger. I sunk so deep, that was a really bad trigger. I sunk so deep that like I started having really bad ideations and just poor thoughts, and my hygiene got bad, and some triggers. Normally I'm an athletic individual. So I had tore my hamstring, I had tore my quads. So where I'm normally active, like you said, I deal with sports, things like that. Where I'm normally active, I'm in the bed and it's hot outside. Everybody, and the sun is shining. And now you know what? I can't move. So, the triggers were everywhere, especially when you're in a hypersensitive state, when your depression is at a hypersensitive state, then, triggers are anything. My kids coming in making too much noise, trying to figure out how I was going to get something done and not wanting to get out of bed. Like everything is a trigger when you're just not in a good space.
Yeah, and I definitely feel you on that. You're right about that, man. Every single thing. And it seems like sometimes it's you're already carrying around a weight, you know what I'm saying, when you're managing. And then when things start to pile up, that weight get a lot heavier than, the average person's weight. I can't even say that. I think everybody just carry their weights well. I think we all feel and see the same thing. We just all do a really good job of hiding it. You know what I mean? So it's that's the whole point behind this podcast, man, letting them know like that can really turn into one more thing. You know what I'm saying? Like when you're in that kind of space, all it takes is one more thing. You know what I mean? So and then when you're in a space where you cope badly and you cope on, like you go to substance abuse or you go to risky behavior, that only puts you in a deeper hole, man. And it's like quicksand dealing with depression, And we can be a lot of guys. We play tough with it. I don't even think we realize we carry it around. I think we just move around in a way where we're just like, all right, let's next thing. All right, one more thing. Let me get here. And then when they get to a place where we feel like, man, like I can't do nothing. You know what I'm saying? It's like defeating, as a man, in your role. So I can understand where you're coming from, man. And it makes a lot of sense. And again, I commend you on like how far you are in your journey.
Absolutely. And it's unfortunate, like you said, it's unfortunate that that despite, like I said, again, we speak about strong women, and we measure a man's strength by the things that he tolerates and things that, as opposed to understanding that, he's a human. And so I've told people, and I've told my boys, like, one thing I'll never do is take the hue out the man. When you look at a rainbow, there's multiple colors. When you peel back an onion, there's multiple layers. Right. So, a hue is in multiplicity. So, just because he's happy or it looks like he's happy, think about what it looks like when you post a picture on the internet. That's why they have filters. Girl, your face ain't that clear. That's what it looks like. So it's edited. I feel like males outward point of, their outward what word am I trying to use? The way that they look, the way that they project themselves outwardly in society is literally like a filtered version of themselves, because certain things are not acceptable for them to display without them being demasculated. So, I think that it's so unfortunate, because as a female's counterpart, that's who we look to for when we're weak. We look to a man to be strong. But if he's not mentally strong, what does that look like? What does that look like for the household? He has weight on his shoulder to be the leader, to be the provider, to be the lover, all those things. And in the inside of his head, he feels the same way we feel. Like, I'm sad. I feel useless. My self-esteem is low. I'm scared I can't do something. All those things that we just, we take for granted because it's not shown. You guys don't get to express that, without being chastised or without being made fun of. So,
No, that's facts. And we do it to ourselves a lot of time. And you saying that, man, kind of put me in a space where, like, even thinking where, like, my wife deals with depression, and she deals with the postpartum depression after having my daughter 2 years ago. You know what I'm saying? So it goes back to speaking on the whole how your body is built as a woman and how you guys go through these things on a regular basis, and it's more common than you would think. But even with my bipolar disorder, with knowing like the severity of my symptoms and how they can get and how quickly they are, how quickly they come. When my wife goes into a space of depression, I, as a man, like even dealing with this thing, like I make it a point to make sure that she has a space to kind of deal with her depression. You know what I'm saying? Like, but it gets hard, right? Because you're in like one of the lowest spaces. You're still experiencing some tough things in life. You're still getting some tough lessons taught your way. And at the age of 40, you just like, all right, bro, like this be over with by now. You know what I'm saying? So you get to a space where, like, as the father in me, the husband in me, it doesn't allow like my family to see that side of my depression. So
because life has to go on. Because life has to go on. With or without your bipolar, life has to go. There are people depending on you. You know,
I got boys watching me, man. Like I can't sit down and just like, I got boys and I got girls watching me. I can't have my daughters thinking their husband is supposed to like I don't think my kids realize, like my kids seen me sick 5 years ago, right? They seen me like sick. Mm-hmm. So where I am now, I don't think they realize the fight it took to get here. And that fight was to maintain that role as a husband and as a father, right? But there's consequences that come with that. You know, when you go through these things with, like you said earlier, with a significant other or anybody you're dating or anything like that, man, you got to realize there's two people in this. So yeah, you feel how you feel, bro, but how you feel is impacting the person that actually loves you. You know what I'm saying? And then when you get to a place when you deal with somebody that has been in a space where you kind of battle with them, right? And then it don't really go that way. You know what I'm saying? Like
today's your breakdown day, but tomorrow I need you to tag me in because, like I said, life is going to life regardless. And as long as you have a partner with you that is willing to be tagged in and understand that today is not my day. She needs today or he needs today, and there is the support there between the two of you, because if they weren't there, just like you said, you still have to be a father. And we know how to pull it together for our kids. So we have to understand that just because they're an adult, we pull it together for our kids because we're like, we want to be the example. But we also have to still be the mate. We have to be the partner. So we should be able to pull together for an adult also.
Yeah, facts. And you mentioned that the crazy thing is I don't hide like that part of it from like I'll hide like if I'm having like a rough week or something like that, everybody sleep, I'll go out and I handle it a lot differently than I did when I was at that suicidal state. You know what I'm saying? Like back then it was the world is over, everything's done. Now it's just like got that shit out. Now get back to business. Let me go there. You know what I'm saying? So it's just funny because even coaching, man, like my biggest thing has always been mental toughness. I don't think my kids understand. I know my kids and the coaches around me don't understand why I'm so big on mental toughness, because there are times in life, man, where it don't matter how tough you are, bro, physically. Like when you get the mental obstacles and you got to lift those mental weights, man, like everybody don't come back from those. It's evident in the graveyard. It's evident in the prisons. You know what I'm saying? It's evidence and it's evidence in the streets where, people are battling from addiction. It's so many different ways, the violence that we have. It's so many different ways of showing you that we're falling apart, man. And nobody wants to say anything because it's labeled mentally ill, right? Or mental illness. Right. But a lot of this stuff.
So actually, I take the. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
So actually, I take a different approach. I don't. I coach as well. So I coach girls basketball. I don't take the mental toughness part. Girls or boys. I take the relinquishing part. So basketball is considered a male dominant sport for the most part, and so because it's considered a male dominant sport or a masculine sport or whatever it may be, that there comes that mindset of that, just like if a female was playing football, like there would be a mindset of I have to be tough. So with my girls, I used to be a little girl. So with my girls, if I can look on their face and see when it's not a good day, and they don't have to ask me. So I'll bring it in without me. I don't have to point that girl out, because if she wanted to say it, she would say it. But I try to teach her to say it by being available. So I'm like, hey, everybody, bring it in. Now, this is unconventional, but I'm like, all right, it's hug time. And then we just like
I can see you doing that though.
yeah, just like when you're in football, you huddle. Oh no, we hug it out, and so that way, that girl, because that's what you need. You need someone to acknowledge you. You need someone to embrace you. Whether it be literally or figuratively, you need someone to embrace you, for you to realize I'm not by myself. For you to realize there are people that care about me. So I tell my girls, hey, if you need a hug, tap me on the shoulder, make a gesture, wink twice, and you don't have to ask for it, but I'm gonna see it, and we all gonna hug. I'm not gonna single you out. We all gonna hug. So it's teaching two things. It's teaching those that are receiving the hug that it's okay. It's okay to be held. It's okay to be embraced. It's okay to be supported. And it's teaching those that are given the hugs as well that it's okay to support. It's okay to embrace. It's okay to be there for someone when they need you, even if you can tell and they didn't ask you. Some people they don't always want you to give them a solution. They just want you to give them support. They don't want you to solve their issue. They just want you to listen. They don't want you to fix their problem. They just want you to be there with them or encourage them or hear it out. Like, hey, I'm having a bad day. Da, da, da. I don't want you to make my day better. I just want you to listen and acknowledge and see, like, hey, okay, and then go from there.
Yeah. No, that's dope. But that's funny, man, because that's to me, that's the perfect way to be, right? And with the girls, right? And I played basketball like since high school, right? The longest sport I played ever. But I fell in love with coaching football, man, because even the little football that I played, bro, it showed me like life lessons within the game, like literally, like when you're doubting yourself, when you don't feel like doing something, when you're tired and you gotta go, when you know what I'm saying, like when you're hurt and you gotta keep pushing through, and ultimately, man, just like the sport itself, you watch young boys, man, like grow into their like little bit of manhood they're growing into. You know what I'm saying? Like when they facing their fears, when they don't want to hit, you can see it on their face. They don't want to hit. But the moment that contact happens, man, they come back like, yeah, what's up? Let's go again. You know what I'm saying? So watching these kids get to a space, man, where you see their body come together, man, with how they moving and how they used to move, and you see them working hard and fighting through adversity. To me, that's what men need. You know what I'm saying? That's what young men need, because we don't have anybody else to fall back on. We have things that we can't tell our girls. You know what I'm saying? We have nobody embracing us in that space. And a lot of times that we're coming back, a lot of times the guys that are helping us out or pouring into us, they have to face us with a level of like what seems like coldness, but it's not, it's realness, because it's the world we live in. You got, especially as black men, right? Especially with minority men, there were a lot of Hispanic and black boys, right? These kids, man, got to know that the world is against them. The guys that look like them, a lot of their women are against them. You got police officers against them. You got everywhere you turn for a young male. I swear to God, I had my girls early, my older girls early. I didn't have this fear.
You did.
You know what I'm saying? I didn't have this fear for my girls that I have for my boys. This is different, man. This is like thinking about the things that I end up in, just minding my business. You know what I'm saying? Like, so boys got to understand, man, yeah. So that's why I make sure, like, I preach mental toughness, but I make sure my kids understand they support it. You know what I'm saying? Like, hey, bro, I'm fussing at you. I'm putting bass in my voice to motivate you, dog, but I understand where you are. I've been there. You know what I'm saying? But you ain't gonna get what you want standing here. You want to be Division I, right? You want to start in the game on Saturday, right, bro? You're not gonna get what you want like that, and I'm not gonna lie to you. You know what I'm saying? But if you want to go sit down for a second, dog, and you can't take it, I understand. Go take that breath. You know what I'm saying? It's just a way of making sure these kids feel validated, man, these days. And it's, and like you said, like getting to a space where you feel like, okay, you can have that conversation with that male. Like, he's gonna give you stiff conversation if it's the right guy. But he also going to give you a little bit of empathy. He'll give you a little bit of love, a little bit of caring within that space. Some accountability, some consequence, all of that. Like, hey,
that's facts. That's human, that's fair, but understand that with hard work comes comes sore muscles. With hard work comes challenges. The harder you hit, the harder it's going to motivate the next boy to hit, so it don't hurt as bad. Like, just all of that, just the accountability, the consequences, all of that, those are things that both, male and female children need, especially in this time where, we have a lot of, like I said, a lot of things that we were thankfully, we did not go through. left us with a sense of responsibility. Nowadays, there's so much entitlement. And there's so much access to understanding how to manipulate or utilize feeling or being entitled that we've gotten away from accountability. So
you got a lot of little narcissists running around.
Yeah, but and again, when you have someone who is absolutely, when you have someone who is in a mental fragile state, and you have a narcissist running around, you have a conditioned narcissist at that. You have a narcissist running around, or a manipulator running around, or a reactive abuser. When you have those type of things going around, things that we didn't have to deal with, I'd rather, at that point in time, I'm glad I got to be a closet depressor as opposed to being, because, even looking at, again, back to your spoken words, the suicide rates. I remember when I was in high school, and I was in honors class, and we went home for a summer break. We came back to school, and one of the girls in my class had killed herself, had unalived herself. I'm sorry, I mean you skill. Had unalived herself, and I was in the 10th or 11th grade. Like, it was still very early on in my high school career, and it was the thought. Like, at that point in time, I couldn't fathom, like, is that for real? I got older, and a friend of mine, his daughter, literally the year, like a few days before that child went into high school, same thing. I didn't realize that, like, that was common bullying. Like I said, you have these entitled, selfish, narcissistic children that have no sense of accountability, or no sense or no understanding of consequence for their actions, that they are literally toxic, and it's causing people to just not want to be here. People are seeing, the alternative as being the end game, and it doesn't have to be that way. So, when, like you said, I think it does start with the mentors, the coaches, the the people that are self-aware, the people that have emotional intelligence, to start. If we're going to put anything out, if we're going to stream anything, if we're going to make anything available, it needs to be those things. It needs to be the accountability, and understanding that emotions are subjective, and just because you don't see it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And more of those be kinds, and you never know what someone's going through. I've noticed they started doing videos like that. I started seeing something where they were doing videos like that, but where I only see them because I look for them. I don't. It never matches the algorithm for when you get on social media. What do we see otherwise? We see toxicness, we see disrespect, we see, we see conceit, like that. What we don't see is compassion. We don't see support. We don't see empathy. We see church things or religious broadcastings or things like that, but we don't see embracing. We don't see the common person dealing with the common person. We hear scriptures, we hear, things like that, but we don't see John walking down the street and, just being polite, or even just waving. Like, we've gotten to a day and age where, like, I drive down the street and, again, we were raised in the county, so we don't have to know you to wave. Just we made eye contact. Hey, you know what I mean?
Hey, what's up?
I never thought it would get to a space where, like, I'm waving. You know me? Okay. Where you're scared to be a person, where you're scared to be kind. Like, that's the day and age that we're in. And then everything is broadcasted. The negativity is broadcasted, so it looks acceptable. It looks like that's what's supposed to be happening. And, again, all this does is just feed on a person's depression. It feeds on a person's negative state of mind. It to a point where it encourages it almost, especially when, dealing with bipolar. Like, I don't want to say I commend you, because I know that you took the proper steps to make sure that you were able to deal with it. I know that, and it was not something you asked for, and it was, and I'm sure it's not something that you prefer. But when I said initially, when I got on, I have depression. Depression doesn't have me this year. There's times where you have bipolar and bipolar doesn't have you. And so as long as this year, you know, you have bipolar more days than bipolar has you, that's a win. That's an
a win.
achievement.
I agree, man. You gotta take the scale off of what society weighs. You know what I'm saying? Like you gotta learn to you gotta learn to appreciate your own wins, because just getting I'm nowhere, man. I've been battling this thing now since I was about 35. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm just getting to a space where I'm starting to kind of understand what I'm dealing with. You know, and I'm at a space where, like you mentioned earlier, where like you have to exercise the boundaries with everybody. And sometimes it gets to a space where it's kind of scary when you got to exercise them with the people that you love. You know what I'm saying? Like, so, but that's the only way you're going to survive this thing until you get strong enough to know what you're dealing with, because that bipolar, that depression, like while you moving, that motherfucker in the back doing push-ups, you know, waiting for your ass to come back.
It's definitely throwing body shots waiting for you.
It's a scary thing, man.
Waiting for you.
It's scary, man. I think people talk about a dark space so much that you can't, like, people kind of think it's cliche at this point, but no, if you haven't been there, man, you can't understand like the fear. You know what I'm saying? You can't understand like the feeling like the devil breathing on your neck, like it's just one move or always worrying about death, or you know, it's just a weird, or something happened to somebody you love, or something happening to you just going out there. It's just the feeling that you get with depression, man. It shows you how getting to a level to where I got, it's scary how powerful your brain is. And then when you start to see things like dementia and Alzheimer's, like you kind of realize, like, bro, like it's something really going on. Like you can really lose like full control of your brain. And people think that it's not easy thing to get back, and it's not something that you can't tell which way you're going to go when you get to that level. You can get to a space where you harm yourself. You can get to a space like the guy happened in Texas when he went and shot up the people at the mall. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't know what that looks like. You can go out here and you can just be mad and you can bang on somebody just because you're having a bad night. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just, you don't know how that looks for you. So you can't really take the chance of letting it get that bad. You know what I'm saying? And
some people don't even realize that, you know, mental health illnesses, they can be acquired, but they can also be inherited. Like they can be biologically passed down. You know, that's why when you go to the doctors and they say things like, you know, did your parents suffer from, you know, high blood pressure? Like high blood pressure is something that can run in your family. Mental health is something that can run in your family. Bipolar disorder can run in your family. Depression can run in your family. You know, all of that, schizophrenia, all those they can run in your family. So where people thinking that, oh, you just had a bad day. Like, no, if I look at my family history, there was a lot of bad days from a multitude of my family. So again, you know, just the lack of knowledge and the ignorance of what you know what mental health really looks like. Again, we look at social media and we acquire words. You know, we think we learned something because we get snippets of edited things that are put together, and people use words, and you know, we catch clips of people saying words that they saw wherever they saw, and so they're using it in their own, you know, terms. And really, at the end of the day, it's like, okay, so where is that being applied though? Like, you're saying that, and other people are going to interpret it, but like, where's that being applied at though? Like, you're saying that, but are you on the flip side of it? Like, what education are you given behind saying words like emotional intelligence? Because people think that they're emotionally intelligent just because they know they're sad today. That's not emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence comes with you're sad and you not taking that out on the next person, or
preaching right now. You preaching. You got a word for them. For them.
or you feel a way, so you know what you have to do so that you don't, you know, push that on the wrong person. Like, emotional intelligence isn't just, oh, I'm aware that I'm sad, or you know, things like that. Like, if we're going to put things out, like, put it all out.
Yeah, it's all right. I feel like I can kill somebody today. Why am I so mad? I'm not going out here in this environment today because I don't want nothing to go bad for them or me. You know what I'm saying? And being okay with that. But no, it's just that's facts, man. Like that's funny you say that. They do throw things out. Even the word narcissist is thrown around so often that
yes. They love to use the word narcissist. Toxic. They love to use the word toxic. Toxic is so overused.
You know what's the funniest part, Kay? is when you sit back and you hear people calling somebody else a narcissist, and you know, full on textbook, these are narcissists. The person that's talking is a textbook narcissist. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yes.
so you just sitting back like, man, Satachi, like that's what gave me my passion to kind of talk about this thing, right? Because it's like, man, like we joke around with it so bad that we don't even realize that the person that's making the jokes is the one that got it. You know, I was the main one back in the day talking about the weather was bipolar. Oh, my girl was bipolar. You know what I'm saying? Like, so it's just funny how that comes. It's just funny, like the level of education. My buddy told me, man, he said, man, this field is wide open as far as education. Like, we're just getting to a space where, you know, people will start to actually accept and listen to what mental illness is. And it's a scary thing, but it's a good place to be because people are more open-minded. You're finding more ways to express, you know what I'm saying, like how people are more open-minded and transparent about what they deal with. And I think the best part of that, what I see coming out of that is that people are now, with talking about how you feel, you're taking the light off of mental illness and putting it on what causes this shit. Like this, a lot of times there's hereditary, but a lot of times it's hereditary, but it's not exacerbated until you experience the trauma. You know what I'm saying? Like until it's triggered. Until you're triggered, and that lens that you have, that you naturally have for life, you have to alter it off of what you're actually seeing and living. And like you said, like coming from living in the city, we lived in the city, you know, up until probably 90 till I was born in the middle school, and we moved to Montgomery County. But you still have to have a level of it's just different, man. The things that you face, especially a young Black boy coming from the city, then going to somewhere like Montgomery County, and from that school system, from the neighborhoods, like when you're once confidence within your neighborhood and your peers and things like that, now you're moving to a space where everybody looks different. The only white person you seen was in elementary school. She was a teacher or a counselor or something. But now you out here, you living with him, and these white boy pressing you, and you gotta whip his ass, but you scared because you see stuff on TV. Like, if I touch this boy, I'm gonna get.
Then here I go in a bad space, and or even the opposite way. Moving from Baltimore to Anne Arundel County, it was crazy because my mother was educated. My father was too. My family's educated. So our geographics had nothing to do with our education level. So my articulation has always been very prominent. I've always spoken well, and so when you go from one demographics to another demographics, you might not fit there. Like when I was in a more predominantly African American demographic, I was too white because I spoke too well for them, and because I then moving to a predominantly Caucasian area, I wasn't white enough because I was Black. So it just. All these things get, they give you emotional stigmas, and it's again, they leave you in spaces like, okay, what do I do? Again, like you said, like what you're not going to do is play with me, sir. And then over here, it's like, I got to be tough over here, but I'm not soft because I'm over here. It's just you
just worry, man. You just in a space of not being sure
stress.
What decision to make.
Here comes stress. Now here comes stress. Triggering your mental health. Again, there's the triggers are endless. The triggers are really endless. They really come from every facet of your day. If you don't have a hold of them, if you don't acknowledge them, and acknowledging them doesn't mean ignoring them. And acknowledging them doesn't mean reacting. You
gotta do anything with it. Just say, "Hey, I'm here."
Just knowing that it's present. Acknowledging its presence, and then making the right decision on how you respond to it. So,
and that's the place. Like I think people realize that one of the exercises, one of the ways that I cope is not fighting how I feel with bipolar disorder, because you can't fight it. You just can't panic when you're in the middle of it, right? So what you do is you start off recognizing the space that you're in, or sometimes you don't even recognize it. You allow yourself to get to a space of why you feel so overwhelmed, and why the emotions are so overwhelming, right? And then you let it sit for a second. But I give myself a point like, all right, I'm not going past Friday. You know what I'm saying? Next Friday, I already know I'm gonna give myself whatever I gotta do to get through this. I'm gonna ride it out. I'm gonna communicate to my family, but then by this Friday, they gonna see me getting up and doing something. As time goes on, I try to make that time shorter. So if it's Friday one time and the next something happens, if something's not so bad, I got 2 days. If something happened that day and it ain't so bad, I got 3 hours. You know what I'm saying? Like it's in the space where It's just where you got to do that mental. It's a real mental workout, man, to get to that place, because people don't understand how negative memes work in your mind. It's like taking a meme off of Instagram, right? You see that negative meme and you take it in one time and you think about it over and over again. It reproduces itself a million times over. So
the algorithm,
the algorithm, right? So you got to break that algorithm by throwing in something positive, even when you don't feel like it. When you don't feel positive at all, when you're sad, you got to find something happy that you remember that small amount of that feeling, and plant that seed and get it back again. That's mental work that a lot of people can't put up with, man. And you see a lot of people, a lot of guys that they really don't want to fight that fight again when it comes around. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just they barely made out of the last fight. You know, you got your kids, you got the daughter moms, you got your ex-wife, you got whatever you got in your corner. You got your mothers and your grandmother saying you weird and you off now. Your family talking about you. Nobody reaching out to you. Everybody's stomping you further and further to where you are. And then you get to a place, man, where you just like, man, like, I get it. Like, I see the change myself. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, so let me just, and they tap out. And I've lost some friends and some associates where I know that these men were fighting, man. Like, they were trying to get back. And it was one thing that happened while they were on a good step that caused them to commit the suicide. These guys were getting to a space where they were getting to a point where they were starting to obtain some of the things they wanted, and then one small thing just sends it all away. I'm laughing, man, because we were supposed to do it. It was only supposed to be an hour. We are an hour and 10 minutes, but look, that we have the grace in the title of the show. That's why it's called The Loquacious Thinkers. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's talkative thinkers. It's just, I know me, but we ain't gonna go too much longer. I'm gonna go back and get back on track with we talked about how that looked as far as, you know, how your triggers looked when it came to your family. Like, is there anything you would like your family to know about, you know, like your battles? Like, if you're in a good space, like, how should they take that downside? How would, say what you want?
I mean, so honestly, you know, my family, you know, when it comes to my family, I had to learn again. So one thing I did learn is that as a coach, you know, that you try to tell your kids, like, have the momentum going in, because it's harder to catch up when you're behind than it is to, like, keep the lead. You know what I'm saying? It's harder when the score is 14-3 to get from 3 to 14 when they can still progress than it is for you to be up by 14 and, you know, and them to come up to you. So I've learned that when I'm in a good space, when it comes down to my family, if I want to keep that lead, if I want to keep that space, or not just my family, anyone, if I want to keep that space, I have to save myself. I have to love them from a distance. You know, I'll check in on them, but I am at an age, I'm at a space, and I am at a moment where it is okay for me to put me first. When you get on the airplane, and you travel with a small child, they tell you if the air deploys, you know, drops down, you're supposed to save yourself first, then you save your child. So so, you know, so as the head of my household, I know that I cannot let outside things redirect spaces when I get in good ones, because if I'm not good, what does that mean for those that are underneath of me? So in order for me to stay good, some things have to be sacrificed. And I'm okay with sacrificing my family, because just like when you go to work, if something happens to you today, tomorrow, your job is up for, you know, instantly, your job is up for replacement. You know, my mother only has one daughter, my mother only has one son, but Lord forbid, if something happens to me, my mother still has another child.
Facts.
You know, so it boils down to it. Like, sometimes, you know, you got to love your family, but you got to love yourself more. You got to put yourself first. And that does not mean for all family, but even with my kids, they know when my door is closed and my light is out, mommy needs a moment. And they're okay with giving me a moment, especially my older sons. You know, my 18-year-old, he's learned, like, today is not the day that we're going to get on mommy's nerve. Like, and it's not because he's scared. It's because he wants to help me maintain my peace. It's because he doesn't want me in the space where I was not functional for them. So, you know, if you can't be around family that's going to support, you know, your mental health space, then you have to love them from a distance. and be okay
Facts.
with that. And whatever they say about that, you have to stand up for yourself in that space. So I've just learned that, like, y'all have your own lives and I have mine. And if yours is going to interfere with the peace of mind, then I got to love you from a distance.
Yeah, that's facts, man. And it's crazy because you have to have a mindset of toughness going into that, because a lot of times when you have your boundaries, that pisses people off and they take it personally. You know what I'm saying? Like, so you got to be in a space where, okay, I'm not in a space of intentionally trying to hurt you, but I've communicated to you over and over again that this is where I am and you're not respecting where I am. So I need a break. And then when you step off, when you're in a weak space, man, and you hear the things that come after that person is saying, it kind of breaks you down even more, especially when you were just in a place of begging for your mental peace. You know what I'm saying? So that's real, man. So, like, what's your favorite coping strategy?
So my favorite coping strategies is, one, mentoring and coaching. I had stopped coaching. I think the last time I had coached maybe was, it was at least like 7 years, 6, 7 years ago. So coaching was definitely one. I started kickboxing, and then just making a to-do list of like what I wanted to accomplish, and then actually initiating them. That was letting me know the progress I was making in my healing. And then doing things like journaling, like I said, therapy, journaling, exercising, whether it would be, sometimes isolating. Isolating was absolutely probably the best thing I could have done for myself, was to remove myself, because at the time, I'm at a space now where I'm trying to be mindful and aware and cautious of trauma bonds, because I don't want to get caught up in a trauma bond and be left within the trauma because of the bond. Like if you're going through something and I'm going through something, it's okay for you to be like, listen, I'm going through something and I know you're going through something, but I gotta step away for a second. And I'm gonna have to support you. If it's not a trauma bond and I really care about you, I have to support you. But if I get mad at I'm going through something that you're not. Trauma bond. Only reason I want you here is because I'm not good and you not good, and misery loves company, and we're going to keep ourselves here. So somebody has to break that, and it's hard to break trauma bonds because you feel like I told you, and being in a crowded space, feeling alone. Trauma bonds make you feel like somebody's with you. You don't feel by yourself. It's not a good bond, but you don't feel by yourself.
Right.
So, just being aware of trauma bonds and isolating myself. Again, that was probably the best thing I could have done.
There is a such thing as healthy isolation. That's what I was going to say.
I think you said something about giving yourself a threshold, like the timing, the chunking of your, okay, I'm going to give myself, and I do that. And when you said it, I'm like, I do that. He's so correct. I'll get pissed. And I've learned to cope with my aggression, but I've had anger issues in the past. And so I had to learn, like, I'm valid for being upset about it. But what I can't do and what I'm not going to do is be so grudgeful that I'm still mad at this 3 days later. And now I've missed out on all the positive things that I could have done because I'm mad at this. So I've learned that, I have to give myself time frames on what me being upset, what me being down, what it looks like. And my threshold might be different than yours. My dark days, my thresholds before I start doing really bad might be 3 days. After the third day, I gotta get up, I gotta wash my butt, I gotta get myself pretty, I gotta get back to myself, or otherwise that 3 days will turn into 30 real quick for me.
Facts. But go back to what you said, man, as far as like the anger. A lot of people don't realize that that's where I've started to realize that I was depressed at. My anger, you know what I'm saying? Like, I had the rage that I've been getting the best of my entire life started to get the best of me once I got to them really dark spaces. And it was unconsciously, it would come to a head unconsciously with no effort. It's just like if something happened, boom. It was a point where like I really couldn't be around my kids for a while, living in the same house with them. They had to go to daycare even though I was in the house, and then I felt like shit when they was in daycare. You know what I'm saying? Like, so, but this is a space where you kind of like, my therapist told me like Devin, like, I understand what you want to do right now, but you're in a sensitive space where like you just wanted to commit suicide, like very intently. You know what I'm saying? Like, that wasn't a joke. You may feel like you're in a different space now, but that stuff comes back around even faster if you're not. So that's where it comes in, where you have the right, people have to handle you well. People have to understand what you're going through. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And I was just blessed to have my wife.
Dealing with your conditions and having highs and lows, and how extreme those highs and lows can be. It could look like anything, and so even to you. So absolutely.
You gotta get the best grip you have on that, man. Well, so we already got to that one. We're gonna coming to the end of it, right? Lastly, how does life look for you outside of the lens of your mental battles? Like, do you have a place that you're trying to get to? Is it peace? Is it happiness? Is it ultimate health? Is it the bag? Like, where do you see yourself at in 15 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now? Or what do you want to be?
So ultimately, I want to remain in a place of healthy healing and acceptance and existence in it, because again, in all the things that we discuss, and understanding that it's not just a thought, like it's literally it's inherited, it's a chemical situation, it's a hormonal situation, it could be any of those things. Understanding and just making sure of maintaining and coping with it. I'm okay with existing with it as long as I can keep a handle on it. Like, that's what I want to do. I want to make sure that, I maintain a handle on it, and understanding that, like, some spaces are for me, some days are for me. And, if this is going to be something that I'm not going to ever get away from, then at least I'll be able to, it won't run me. I'll run it. It won't run me. That's my biggest goal when it comes down to it, because everything outside of that, literally, my life looks better when I have a handle on it. So the possibility is endless on what that looks like, as long as I have a handle on it. I'm actually going for my PA in psychiatry. So just all of that, I have a better handle on things. I have a better handle on things when when I have control over my emotions, when I have control over my thoughts, when I have control over my moods. I have a better handle on things, and I take more initiative. I'm more motivated. I'm more encouraged. That's the only thing I want to do, is just stay in a space of maintaining and, having control over it.
Now that's a smart ass answer though too, because you hear a lot of people thinking like you're going into your battle with mental illness. One of the main things that I was asking and that I was hearing was, how long do I got to take this medication? How long do I have to pay? How long do I have to do this? How long do I have to? A lot of people don't realize this is a lifelong battle. This is something that you're gonna have to make friends with. You know what I'm saying? Like it's and make peace with. But no, that's a real ass answer, Kay. And for fun, right? One thing that has you worried about today's society, it can be anything.
Oh my goodness, like everything. You touched on saying, what society looks like for your boys, like everything at this point. Like I love my children, but there's a part of me that makes me so nervous for the world gobbling them up, because this is not the same world that I grew up in, or that you grew up. Like the world gobbling them up, just the things they have to go through, the things they have to see, that they're exposed to so young, like just like I said, everything. And I think my biggest thing as far as society is just not being prepared for the changes that that are coming right now, especially even right now. Like, if we think depression's high right now, I'm not about to get political.
It's about to be a pandemic out this. It's about to be raining bodies. What was that company that went down a couple of years ago? The electric company, when them guys were jumping off the building, man, when that wealth was hit. I cannot think of the name of the company. I cannot think of it. But the company crashed, and all these wealthy people just started committing suicide left and right. And it's scary when they get into that space, because some of the things that, I'm not getting political, but the thing is about awareness, and people don't realize that this dollar collapse thing is much bigger than what they're making it on the media, and a lot of the U.S. wealth is going to be lost now. And where's the wealth at? With the wealthiest, right? Like,
right.
So it's in a space, man, where you got to be cognizant, and you got to kind of be on top of your mental health, and you got to kind of be grounded to something outside of the bag, because the bag is about to be more challenging to obtain.
Yeah.
But I'm off of that.
Yes. You know, I just hope that our society humbles itself a lot.
We need it. We need it.
Because you know we did poorly just from having to be in the house. we were like anxious kids during quarantine. Like, why do I not? We were tantruming. You know, we were so entitled that, you know, we were complaining about not getting our hair done and things, haircuts and, you know, things like that. And then we were complaining like, well, why does the liquor store get to stay open? You want to know why? Because we weren't compassionate enough to understand that alcoholism is a physical addiction. So people could actually go in the sea, you know, things like that. We don't have that type of mind frame. We just have selfish mind frames and instant gratification mind frames. So like you said, Lord forbid, things don't go the way that we want them to go, especially in our economy. Ooh, that's my biggest fear in society. Just that right there. You know, like I said, this world gobbling this country just gobbling us up with, you know, whether it be greed or entitlement or, you know, just being spoiled.
It's scary. The scary part of that, right? The spoiling, the entitlement these kids have some guff in them, man. If that guff was directed into the right way, this is the world changing generation. You know what I'm saying? Like, but it's something going on where there's something going on. So look, right, with the on the show that I want to do a part where, you know, since we go through the valleys a lot, right, on the show and we stay in that space, I want to give you an opportunity, like if you've been through your valley, like what would you like to scream from the top of your mountain? You know what I'm saying? Like, that makes sense.
Oh, what kind of man. You know, I don't know. You know, that's so I don't know. You know, that's I think that's a feat that I have not thought that far into, because I want to make sure that I stay present. Why not? Because I want to stay present. You know, I one of the things about me is I do get anxious. You know, a lot of times with depression comes anxiety. So I realize that if I keep realistic and present goals, those are more attainable for me without me getting anxious over them or getting depressed or upset because I don't attain them. But, you know, as far as victory wise, like it literally would probably be something like an obscenity, because that would wrap up every, you know, it kind of like a, you know, honestly, to like all the negativity, all the bad days, all the dark days, you know what I'm saying? I'm still in my valley. I'm getting there, you know, but like all of that, you know, all of that stuff, like it was what Whoopi Goldberg say, I'm black, I'm ugly, I'm maybe even poor, but I'm here. You know, you know, I really would. I would if I had the genital, I would rock out with my cock out. Like it would be all of that. Like it would look very, very cocky. It would, because, you know, I as much as I dealt and acknowledged and accepted my you know, my downfalls, I want to praise and acknowledge my defeats with the same energy. I want to match it with the same energy.
I love that answer, man, and that's a great way to end the show. I want to thank you for being a guest and coming on and being so transparent and telling your story, man.
We didn't go over by too much.
We didn't. So I said if we went over, I wasn't go no more than an hour and 30 minutes. So I kind of had that space in place. So I'm a talker, so it's in the space where I said that I was going to be me, man. You know what I'm saying? Like moving forward on this platform and whatever thing I do, I never really been in a space where I felt comfortable just being 1,000% me and going after what I wanted, right? I've always felt like I had to hold some things back, but now like this platform, I feel like I have to do that piece. I don't have to. It gives me the safe space to talk. You know what I'm saying? Like when you come up in a space where you never really fit in an environment, right? You feel comfortable amongst the killers, but you want to be moving amongst the CEOs and everybody. You know what I'm saying? Like, so it's in the space where you just learning, like, you know what? I know you don't want to hear this. You probably want to hear it, but I don't look like what you want to hear. So let me just go ahead and let me hold on to it. You know what I'm saying? So I just thank God for, you know, allowing me to get to a space and have people like you come on and want to talk. You know what I'm saying? Want to share that story, want to push back on the stigma. And I'm thankful for your presence, man. And like I said,
I want to also thank you for, you know, I appreciate the days you checked on me randomly, you know, just, you know, I feel like that's what community looks like. That's what village looks like. Like, I appreciate that from you, especially after 20 something years. Like, I appreciate, you know, that, like that's real adultness, you know, so, you know, I
just know what it is. I know what it looks like, man. I said again.
It shows genuineness.
Yeah, it shows like I know what that feel like, man, and I know that in them spaces, like when you don't want to talk to nobody, like, hey, I'm gonna send you this text, like I'm gonna just make sure you ain't gotta respond, but
still with us? You still with me?
You ain't in trouble over there, are you? You know what I'm saying?
Yes. God bless you. God bless you, Dev. I appreciate everything, and it was great on being on your show tonight. You know, invite me anytime. I'd love to come back anytime.
No doubt, Cave. I appreciate it. But we about to go ahead and get out of here. It is 1:29 on the minute. I'm gonna go ahead and fade this out and put the music back on. I'll holler at you, all right?
All right.
All right, now thanks again.